All right, let's get started here. Happy Leap Day, everyone. Just want to get that important stuff out of the way here first. But yeah, I just want to welcome everyone to day three and the final day of the Fortra IBMI Education Week here. We have some fun and interesting topics here today that we'll be covering. But I hope you've so far in the last 2 days, I hope you've learned some interesting information that you takeaways, I'll call it, right, about automation and security that you can use inside of your businesses. And if you need to lead on us for some of that expertise. But today's sessions are going to be not focused around the automation and security side, but they're going to be focused, and I shouldn't say automation, some of it is automation, but it's going to be around modernization, automation, and what I'll be talking about is creating and updating strategies for business intelligence and document and business management process. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more here as I go through my parts. My name is Greg Schmidt. I'll be the presenter for session 1 and 3 and the moderator for session 2. I have a guest speaker, Brian May from Profound Logic, and he's going to be going over his topic here. As you know, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to put them into the questions window, and I will address them towards the end of each session today. All right, again, my name is Greg Schmidt. I'm a senior solution engineer here at Fortra. 24 years of industry experience. My areas of expertise are document and forms automation, accounts payable, and accounts receivable automation, intelligent document capture, robotic process automation, and also business intelligence. I call those my badges of honor, kind of a thing, things I've learned over the years and I use on a daily basis in my job role. Here's a look at today's sessions a little bit deeper, right? Starting with session 1, how to modernize your business intelligence, right? And I'll be talking about, updating your current plans, for data access strategies and what the business should be aware of. And also I'll be talking about, how organizations have been looking at modernization paths because they've been using technology that needs to be replaced, like Query 400, DB2 Web Query, and other techniques like custom programming that are hard for them to support. And in session 2, this will be a really fun one from Brian, AI for IBMI, an exploration of using AI in business applications. So Brian will be doing his presentation and then be doing a live demo as well. And he'll be talking about how artificial intelligence can assist IBMI modernization efforts and how to leverage cutting edge technology like AI to secure a brighter future on the IBMI. And then the final session of the week, I'll be presenting is session 3, and that's streamline document management, security, and process management. We've been seeing a high increase of customers and prospects coming to us to remove silos of content or document chaos and implement a deeper strategy around centralized document management and workflow processes. Which means standardizing capture methods and enforcing document processes and workflows, and also creating efficiencies within different departments inside the organization, like AR and AP, and any department technically, right, that has processes they need to enforce. A lot of organizations have partial plans already, or have what they think is a complete plan, right? But some of those plans need to be updated in these cases into a more modern, to take advantage of automation, and also not just automation, but integration to their business systems and ERPs. So that'll be session 3 here today after Brian's session. Okay, let's get started on the first topic of today, how to modernize your business intelligence solution and your strategy within your organization, right? Organizations today are consistently collecting massive amount of information via their ERP and other business systems. And the vastness of that data can be very overwhelming and leading to, wasted and unorganized and inaccessible data. I like to refer to this as data waste, right? Having too much data and not knowing what to do with it. In this session, I'll be talking more about how you can create a data access strategy that simplifies how the users access data and facilitates easier access via intuitive interfaces such as dashboards, web interfaces, or even Microsoft Excel, from a user level. And getting your organization on that BI modernization path that can grow with the organization as those needs change. So again, the topics that fall underneath the how to modernize business intelligence that I'll be talking about is defining why business data is important to organizations. And then that's going to lead me into data access trends and challenges we are hearing in today's industry. And then the strategy that I think is key is how to make it easier for users to leverage that business data and alleviate the burden on IT and development and other resources. That's a huge thing that we're seeing is the aging staff and stuff like that, and then the retiring staff. That they're having less and less opportunities inside the organization to be able to do some of those custom things inside of there. So using core solutions that be able to help them that alleviate that need, right? I call them central repositories of views over data, right? That's a key piece of it that are easily managed. And then I'm going to touch lightly on creation or updating a data access strategy around modernization. And then if I have time in the end, I'm going to finish up with a little bit of what the Fortress SQL Business Intelligence solution looks like and how it can help you on those modernization paths and strategies. But I got a lot of content here, so I'm not sure how much I'm going to get through on that last one, but I definitely will touch on it for some of those highlights. The first area is why data is important to an organization. But first I want to start out today by simply defining what business data is, right? In simple terms, business data is any bit of information that relates to the running of a company, right? This could be something as simple as a list of employees or as intricate as an accounting ledger. It can also include elements such as operational costs, strategic overviews, historical sales and marketing information, and customer contact and order information. There's a wide variety of information that it can cover from that standpoint. So from a business side, and most of that data is coming from the ERP at that point, right? Or coming in from other systems. Today's business climate, relies heavily on data, and in fact, it's nearly impossible to make big moves or even enjoy growth if you're not keeping track of various details affected by operations on a daily basis. So companies continue to increase the amount of technology that's being used during these basic tasks, and the amount of information stored and saved for future analysts only increases, right? That said, it's important to realize that keeping and storing this type of information is a key aspect of a data-driven business. After all, what needs to change within you don't know what needs to change inside of your company if you're not keeping track of already what's happened, right? So being able to see those stories that the operational live data is seeing, or using that historical data to compare, it's nice to be able to see those trends. So a lot of people are seeing some of the historical information from that standpoint, but they're not building over the live data, for a couple different reasons that we'll talk about here a little bit later. And we don't want to replicate data too. That's a big thing in the process. We don't want to replicate. If we can go after the live information and live databases, that's the best method or best practice. In turn, that leads to more growth and more efficient strategies, right? So, and more effective strategies in that process. And of course, not all data is entirely useful to organizations, but that's the beauty of a data-driven growth, and why your in-house experts and solutions that you work with are there to help you discover that information, right? So working with that and trying to find those nuggets of information and uncovering those, right? That's the key to I'll call it optimizing your data, the data access strategy, right? That's a key to it, is finding those nuggets and being able to mine that data on a more strategic basis. And sometimes, the information might seem small and insignificant one day, but some days, if the next day you look at that same data, it could be a game changer to the organization, right? So I'm sort of a hoarder of data, right? I like data, I like all my stuff, but I want it organized, right? So I want to make sure that I have it organized because I want it there at my fingertips when I need it, right? So that's a key piece to that. So you can keep as much data as you need to in an organization, inside of databases, and as we'll talk about later, into documents and things like that as well. But we want to make sure that it's optimized and it's available and it's usable to people, right? At that point. Again, organizations know that data is very important to the organization's existence. But organizations also need to start seeing a bigger picture of the data and see the true power of data access and visualization. A lot of people are doing more data-driven report kind of structures, but being able to use web interfaces and even Excel with charts and graphs, or being able to open a web interface and then chart out and graph something very quickly, is key to the being able to manage the growth of the data. And essentially, businesses want to be more objective and data driven. That's their goal, right? So they are starting to embrace the power of the data and the technology. So it really comes down to the technology level in some cases, is making sure that, and the user knowledge too, right? And making sure that the user has the capability. If it's not development or IT doing something like that, you might have to shield them from some of the complexity of the data in those cases. But there's ways to be able to do that. And data at the core is pretty much what's made in every business uses to make decisions, right? For example, like human resources department are gathering data, from online resources to determine, the best people to recruit and confirm details about them, right? So they're using that information and collecting it from a human resources standpoint. We have marketing departments that are lasering in on marketing segments, from that standpoint, and it could be product specific, information, but data that they find consumers that are ready to buy and speed up sales process to increase sales, right? From that standpoint, business executives, must examine, large amounts of data in some cases, right, and see trends around that. To see that price changing on resources, shipping, manufacturing, and incorporating that into their business strategy. That's a key success factor for businesses' success, especially in a fast-paced world like today. And the list on the slide, talks about some of the other top reasons, like improving people's lives. I mean, that's a big one, right? I mean, it's when we're on the phone, we hear a lot of pain from people. You can hear the pain in their voices, right? And that, number one, I mean, I put that there for a reason, right? Improves people's lives because data will help improve the quality of what they're doing. So supporting your staff to do their job efficiently, right? Which then in turns makes money for the business because you're giving them the tools to be able to sift through that data at that point. So I think that's a key factor into this decision making, or into a even into a strategy, right? Make informed decisions. Data equals knowledge. Good data provides indisputable evidence to make right decisions and assumptions, right? So it's nice to be able to get that data and have it there from that standpoint, and stop molehills from turning into mountains, right? So being able to monitor that information and look and compare, and see that information. Sometimes something small might turn into something big because someone's looking at it differently, right, from that standpoint, or looking at it from a shorter amount of time. They need to expand the window in it, right? So being able to carve up that data in different ways, I think is huge. And get the results you want. Allow data organization. Data allows you to measure, right, the effectiveness of any given strategy that you put in place. So you can actually see the approach that you might need to take, or if you need to do any kind of course correction during that process. Find solutions to the problem, back up your arguments. So you utilize data to help present a strong argument, and help with the process change, right? So being able to back up an argument of why something needs to change, or why we might need to get a new product or change the product pricing or something like that to be competitive or something like that, right? So you can use that data from that standpoint, and stop the guessing game. Data will help you examine both good and bad, and decision, and bring those decisions to your stakeholders at that point, right? So you're going to be able to see the outcome, from that standpoint. And be strategic in your approach is another one. I think that's another big one, right? Is be strategic. I think everybody needs to be strategic and have their strategic, parts around their data, but be strategic in the thinking on how you're developing that data for the users. And then know what you're doing well, right? That sort of feeds off of a couple of the other ones up there. But allow data to be, to replicate areas of growth or strength in your organization, but also the opposite, right? Look at low performing areas in the business and remove and sort of help course correct those as well. And then keep track of it all. Good data allows organizations to establish baselines, benchmarks, goals, and helps you move forward, on a daily basis. And then last of all, I think this is huge nowadays is, make the most out of your money, right? Because of tighter budgets and spending cutbacks, you want to make sure your solutions show value to the entire organization over and over. And here's another key to this one: grow with the changing needs of the business, right? You don't want to buy a point solution that only does what you need today. You need that to be able to expand and move forward inside of your organization. Now, here's what we're hearing as top IT concerns and data access challenges within organizations that we've been working with over the past year or two. And starting out with some of the last month's survey from the IBM Marketplace survey, there's a couple areas here that I'd like to highlight, like modernizing applications at 72% of concerns, right? You got data growth at 28%. That's a huge part of business today, right? Businesses are growing. That's a good thing. The data coming in is increasing. And then analytics and business intelligence at 28%. There's a lot of companies that don't do any kind of analytics on their data, right? I mean, they have some very primitive reports, I'll say, from that standpoint, but they're not using business intelligence and analytics to be able to chart and tell stories with that data. This means organizations are in the need for better strategies and solutions to handle the data growth and the visualization of their data. And some of the studies that I've been looking at, it's predicted from some of the online resources that 450 zettabytes of data will be created every day by 2025. That's a tremendous amount of data, on a daily basis that's going to be created, not by each company, but in total, right? And that's 2025 is not that far away. That's next year. With that amount of data continuing to grow, it's going to cause problems sifting through it and organizing it, right? So, being able to understand what stories are there and how to share them with the users and the communities and the stakeholders within the business are going to be key. And often individuals and organizations feel very overwhelmed with huge amounts of information that are available to them. It's hard to see the woods through the trees in most cases, right? But business leaders need data in usable formats so they can make informed decisions. They need ways to be able to sift through that, export it into Excel or a dashboard. Dashboards have been coming, web-based dashboards have been huge lately because of being able to take all different kinds of data sources and put them in there, right? So if it's DB2 data, if it's Windows data, cloud-based data, being able to take all that information and putting it into one single interface, it's making it easier to consume and in a graphical manner, right? Sometimes data is just ugly to look at from that standpoint. So you need to look at it in most cases, but if you can create a graph or chart to see that comparisons are up or downs, kind of a thing, I think that's key. Now, here's a more detailed list of what we're hearing as challenges to organizations' current data access strategies, right? So too many, queries, and queries are too limited, right? So they have too many queries that they have to run, and then they're limited in what they can do. So there's different things that you can do in there. We'll talk about is creating prompts, right? So to be able to solve that problem, create a central repository first of all, and then create promptable information. Ask questions during that prompting and being able to fill in data to be able to do that. And then you can reuse those prompts or reuse those queries for other areas of the business and apply security to them. Solution is too slow. A lot of times the solutions are running, they can't process the data fast enough from that standpoint. So, and we have a lot of customers, especially on the DB2 side, right? They have large amounts of DB2 data, And that's one of the things with the SQL Business Intelligence side that we have a benefit on, because our system runs native, right? From that standpoint, it can reach out to other systems, but we can process that data faster from those databases. And here's another one: need access to a variety of databases. It's not just DB2 data in the world today, right? The Windows world is there. You have all different kinds of databases and sources of data. Organizations might be, native to the IBM, but they buy other companies that, or work with other companies that, have those different data sources that need to be pulled in as well. And then interfaces are not modernized. C-level's asking for data in ways it can't be delivered. They might not be able to deliver it in dashboards or an Excel report, easily to access. And they have limited export options for user delivery, right? Multiple steps to get to the end result. It takes too much time. So being able to condition the data, and I'll call them planned drill downs, right? So planning a drill down. So depending on the knowledge of the user, you can have different levels inside of a data structure to say, hey, I'm going to give them this report, and I'm going to let them, select certain things inside of there, and give them a list, right? Or you can say, here's your planned drill down. Like sometimes in a scenario, you might want to see a customer list on what they purchased, but then you also might want to see what else they purchased. So you can have reports that are driven into those very specific data elements or different points to be able to show them that information exactly. And here's a big one that we'll talk about later too, is teams don't know SQL. So a complexity of the query, hide them. So you can hide the query information behind the scenes and give them more of a template-based kind of structure to be able to, access that information. So we can, we really listen to the customers from that standpoint and want to understand, what level you're at, and you might have all different levels inside the organization, but give you the tools to be able to do that process. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of organizations have been looking at modernization paths because they've been using technology, and the needs, they need to replace, current technology like, Query 400 or DB2 web query, or techniques like custom programming and stuff like that they can't support any longer, right? Or it's harder for them to support. And we all know there's been buzz around the old DB2 web query being, discontinued back in October 10th from IBM. But that doesn't mean, so don't look at this as a setback though. So if you're using DB2 web query or any of the other ones, don't look at it as a setback, right? Look at it as an opportunity to simplify and tighten up your organization's data access strategy, right? To give your business, that edge that it needs, right? So just to be able to refresh it and get, and hit those business requirements and stuff like that. And we'll talk about some of those requirements, that you might need to ask, or just make sure you're asking those questions to yourself to make sure the solution that you're using, can help you with that. So. But at Fortune, we know your business reporting and DB2 data is on the IBM is extremely important to the success of your business. And we just want you to make sure that you have options out there to explore, from that standpoint. So however you're using DB2 web query or custom programs and stuff like that, or other applications, feel free to bounce those off of us from that standpoint and help you with some of that education on that side too. All right, and how to make it easier for users to leverage business data, right? So this is I think this is key, to any strategy. I think this is the main key to the strategy, right? If the data is not usable and in formats people want it in, they're not going to use it, right? Or they're going to use it very sparingly at that point. So making sure that, in organizations, the data access strategy, again, like I mentioned before, you need to simplify the complexity of the business data, from the user community, right? So simplify the, what they need to access, right? Build things around it. Make sure the tools have the capability to be able to, I'll call it shield the business, user from the complexity of that data structure. Here's a look at a visual data access strategy that allows, IT and business analysts and programmers to provide a central repository, right, of reusable, promptable queries, and uses, in a variety of ways, like truly, like I said, truly shielding the user from the complexity of data like that, right? So being able to give them access via the web browser, Excel, dashboards, pivot tables, kind of a thing, to be able to do that. But you can deploy that information and then access all those different data sources and then be able to process that information through. And where the data lives, again, it should not make a difference, right? I just want to bring that up again, because being able to reach across multiple platforms and unlocks and removes the barriers that a lot of businesses face today, especially when you have your main business systems on the IBM but you might have Windows, Linux-based systems, and all these different kinds of databases out there. So again, we want to make sure that you're that you have access to those different data sources and being able to bring those into one source. Now, I just want to spend a few minutes talking about data access strategies and how that can help you on your modernization path, right? But let's first start out with defining what a data strategy is, right? So a data strategy is a vision, on how a company will collect, store, and manage, share, and use data, right? Creating a data strategy involves, outlining how an organization will use data to maximize the productivity and efficiency of their resources, right? With an efficient data strategy, data becomes a resource that works to meet organizational goals, right? So, use that data to really drive that business forward again, right? So I think that's key. Companies need to develop strategies for all their departments, right? But you can pick and choose, which ones are needed, to start out with. But getting that right information means knowing what information is important to the company's decision-making process, right? And the strategy starts with business data. Then consider how users need to view and work with that data again. So here are a few reasons why data access strategies are important to a business, right? So it unlocks the power of the data, right? So it brings you your static data to life, right? See clear pictures of business performance and all the areas that might need to be adjusted, or might need to do some course correction on at that point, right? So you're unlocking the power of the data at that point. Handle increased data volumes, right? So putting a strategy in place to create visualizations and making it easier to communicate over large amounts of data, right? And showing relative links and tracking information between, tracking connections in between departments and data trends and stuff like that. So that's a huge part. As the data is going to increase. That's just a given from that standpoint. It's just how you're going to manage the data, through that process. And then improve data management. Increase the spend. Or I should say speed. Sorry, increase the speed and decisions. How are made. In real time and on-demand information. So you want to make sure that you're improving the data management process. And then using resources efficiently, right? I think this is huge. We've been seeing this a lot from that standpoint, like I talked about earlier. Being able to quickly identify, inaccuracies and errors in the data, and then use resources outside of IT and development to make these changes and alleviate the burden on some of these resources, right? So having an easier way to be able to manage some of that information and not always having to go back to an SQL statement. Maybe it's a visual, of the table or something like that, or a list of stuff. But changing the thought process a little bit from more of a programming standpoint to more of a visualization standpoint over the data. And every organization's data strategy might look a little bit different, but generally, the main elements or principles, of a data strategy will have a lot of similarities to them, right? Incorporating, certain data strategy principles into your plan can help you give them direction and move the company towards its goal, right? Some essential data strategies and principles, might include some of these, right? Like eliminating data, or I should say integrating data and eliminating silos, right? So eliminating silos of data out there. So maybe it's, if you have, so you can connect to all these different sources, but maybe you need to be able to create a data mart or a data warehouse kind of a thing, to be able to bring that information in, to be able to manage it better, right? So being able to look at that strategy and how to be able to get to it. And then streamlining the data collection and sharing. That's a huge one. Setting clear goals and objectives for data management and use. There's a lot of organizations today that it's sort of a free-for-all, right? There's no objectives around the data management and stuff like that. So being able to do that. Making data more visible and accessible. That's huge. Users are asking for that constantly, from that standpoint to get more data. Then making more actionable and easier to share, through those different sources. Like I said, through um, web interfaces, through Excel and other applications. And last of all, prioritize security and compliance, making sure your data is secure. You don't want to give everyone access to everything, right? And some organizations we work with, I have to cringe when we first start working with them because it's like, oh boy, you can see everything from HR data to AR, AP, all that stuff inside of there, with the click of a button, kind of a feel, or with the queries that they run, from the green screens. It's like that. So that, that's horrifying to be able to see that. So you can prioritize security in your plan as well, to be able to help with some of the compliance side of things. And here's some questions that you can ask, during the process too, to help with the discovery. So ask, what kind of decisions are being made today? Are they short-term, long-term decisions? And what's the impact of this decision that's going to be made or can be made? How accurate is the data that you're using today to make decisions? Is and the next question is, very important. Are there trends visible in the data, or is there work to be done to massage the data before it's usable? I think that's key, right? A lot of data needs to be massaged a little bit before it actually can tell the story. A lot of times it's not just jumping out at you at that point. Another big question is, what is the knowledge level of users that are going to use the data? Do they know how to work with the raw data, or does it need to be exported in a more usable format for them to be able to work with it easier? And then what does the user need to do with the data? Sort of piggybacks off that last question, but do they need to view it, or do they need to, work with the data deeper, like in a pivot table or Excel, or they need graphs and charts, or how they need to do it? And then again, how do they need to display it? What's the interface that they need to do it in? Do they need a mobile or a web interface, or again, do they need an Excel, to be able to do that? So these are all great questions that you can start the process with to be able to move that data access strategy forward. But no matter how you answer the questions, it's obvious the issue with companies are facing today. They need to provide better data, and to the right people in the right way that they need it, right? That they leverage it in a timely and accurate fashion to do their jobs efficiently, and enabling them to be nimble, as business requirements change and grow. And another is, as the solution expands within the organization, you need to add different user personas to the mix, and each of them will have their own need to engage with the data differently. So that's a huge one, because it could be a CEO, it could be a controller, it could be an HR, it could be AR, AP leads and stuff like that. But making it easier for them to access that information is key inside of there. And being able to take, like I said, operational live data and historical data and bring it into a single interface to tell deeper stories, that is huge again, I emphasize that, I sound like a broken record on that. That is huge to simplify the strategy, but to enhance the strategy that so people are going to use it for sure. And to make a data access strategy successful in a company, and to have a strategy that can shield is to have a process inside of it to shield the user from the complexity, right, of the data. And most users don't understand databases and table structures, right, like we talked about earlier. But so providing them ways to be able to consume it is key in there. So in summary, why data is so important to companies. In short, businesses, the data is incredibly crucial aspect of the overall operations, right? So they need to make sure they have clear pictures that they can get to the data when they need it. And some of those decisions that they have to make are not easy decisions, right? So they're difficult. So they want to make sure the data is showing very clear pictures, from that standpoint. And just a reminder that now is the time to get business buy-in, right? You got to, when you start that data strategy, no data access strategy is successful without executive and business user buy-in, right? So they have to support it. So demonstrating how data supports their goals, identify a business champion, important stakeholders and other subject matter experts, to help you represent, and get out these specific needs, is going to be key inside of there. And that's something that we can help with as well, is start to drive some of that in some of the conversations and stuff from business users. And that's pretty much what I do all day, is help people understand, the power of technology, right? How it can help you, and so sometimes I feel like a therapist, kind of from that standpoint, because it's understanding, how, don't be scared of the technology, right? From that standpoint, whatever you're using, if you're using AI or if you're using intelligence, inside of there, don't be scared of it. Embrace it from that standpoint. Understand how it can help you and your goals with inside of your organization. All right, I'm just going to take a really quick second here to cover one slide, and then we're going to go into some, we'll see if there's any questions here. But really just, how SQL Business Intelligence can help you. So this is our Fortress solution. And again, we're hiding people from the complexity of the data, right? Creating central repositories in there from that standpoint. So we're being able to, simplify that complexity, over the data. So we can build over all those different databases. It runs native to the IBM, but we can build over all those different structures and databases from that standpoint, and really start to alleviate, IT and programmers' interactivity with the system, and drive it back to the user community a little bit more, with that central repository of information. We sort of use that three-step methodology around collecting and discovering over live data, understanding and design, and share and deploy. I like to reverse the order. In this one, I like to do the share and deploy first and understand how people are going to need to see the data, and then go back to the data and how we're going to access it. So I like to reverse this a little bit, but no matter how you put them in whatever order, these are the three steps that you're going to go in. And then last of all, very important to remember as well, there's no reason to fear the data. So no matter if you're expert at SQL, or if you don't even know what SQL is, we can help at every level with that process, right? So we have SQL interfaces, we have, I'll call it intermediate beginner levels, and then we have no SQL knowledge at all that's needed through template-based structures that can be deployed. So very easy to use interfaces over top of your data. And I'm not going to go into a live demonstration for time purposes here, but just want to bring up, if anybody does want a live demonstration, feel free to reach out to us, and we can sort of have a consultation, and demonstration of our solutions and stuff like that on the SQL BI side, to sort of show you the interfaces if you have not seen them already. All right, I am going to look at any questions. I think the questions that are there, I already answered as I was going through. All right, so perfect. So we don't have any questions. So I am going to give everybody here a 5-minute break. And after the break, we're going to hand it over to the next interesting topic. I think this is a good one, for AI for IBM and an exploration of using AI in business applications. And Brian May will be doing that from Profound Logic. So we're going to give you 5 minutes here. So we'll come back here at Central Time. We'll come back here at 10:43. All right, thanks everyone. All right, we're going to start here in just a minute, but Brian, I am going to switch over the presentation to you. And we see it.
All right, just let me know when we're ready to get started, Greg.
All right, sounds good. Let's give everybody, actually, I'm going to start right now. I'll just introduce you and we'll get going. All right, now we're going to move into session 2 for day 3 here, AI for IBM and exploring the using AI in business applications. Will be presented by Brian May here. So we'll hand it over to you, Brian, to get started. I'm looking forward to this presentation. This should be a fun topic.
I will agree with you on that. This is always a fun topic for me. But as you mentioned, this is going to be a quick look into AI for IBM. And for those of you that don't know me, my name's Brian May. I am the Vice President of Product Management at Profound Logic Software. I'm also the owner of all of our API and AI solutions. You may also know me from the Common User Group. I'm the president of the Common Education Foundation. So our plan for today, this is a somewhat short presentation, so we're gonna keep it pretty fast paced because I want to have some time at the end to spend showing you some of the AI solutions that we're building here at Profound Logic and actually do a live demo. So for today's presentation, we're going to talk about generative AI in general, its rapid growth and the importance for businesses to begin down their AI journey. We're going to talk about some use cases that we've had internally here at Profound Logic, as well as use cases that we're working with our customers on. Then we'll get into our live demo. I want you guys to be able to see our Profound AI product that's currently in beta. You'll be the first large group to be able to actually see that live. And then at the end, you know, if there are any questions that I haven't covered, we'll take a second and make sure that everyone's questions are answered. So with that, let's get into it. So this one slide can cover this entire topic. Generative AI is here now. It has grown up extremely fast. It seems like, you know, 2 years ago, no one was really talking about generative AI other than just all of us Uber nerds, right? That we're keeping up with things that are coming in the future. Well, the future is now. Just to give you an idea of the growth, you know, ChatGPT had 1 million users within the first 5 days of being released back in 2022. 1 million users in 5 days. That was December of 2022. By February, it had passed 100 million users. By June, the ChatGPT website had 1.6 billion visits in that month. And the AI market has been projected to grow from, it was $86.9 billion in 2022, and it's expected to be over $400 billion by 2027. It's supposed to be well over $1 trillion by 2030. So this thing is moving rapidly. We as a company have had to move very rapidly as well in order to keep up with this technology. You may, if you missed it, I wanted to point out that IBM actually did a CEO study around AI. I mean, they published that back in June, but there's some really good information in that. So if you haven't read that study, I highly recommend that you do. But I'm going to pull out a few things that I have here on slides just to give you an idea of not only the technology growing, but how AI is growing in the minds of executives. So I'll just pull out a couple of things from these slides. You're welcome to read through any of them that you want. But 50% of the CEOs that were surveyed are currently working to integrate AI into their products and services. Half. And 75% of them believe that AI is going to be the primary competitive advantage going into the future. Why do I point these things out? Because AI is not something for the future. It is something for now. You should be building a plan now for how you're going to utilize AI, because your competition is already doing it. 43% of the CEOs that were interviewed said they're already using generative AI as a source when making strategic decisions. They're not relying solely on AI at this point, but it is being used in order to help them to make strategic decisions for their businesses. Now, that makes it seem like that, everyone is all on board with AI. That's not the case. There are still concerns, right? Over half of those that were interviewed are concerned about data security, as they should be, right? And this is interesting. So CEOs are all on board with this, but only 30% of non-CEO executives think their organizations are actually ready for AI. And then 29% of executive teams believe they actually have the skills they need to adopt AI. So everyone wants it, and at the same time, everyone isn't sure they have the skills that they need to be able to implement it. And that's where, when we get into the live demo, that's where we'll talk about how the solutions we're building at Profound Logic are helping to make this big, scary technology safe and easy to use. So the real question is, will you be ready? So you've got to start thinking about AI as a strategic direction. Start thinking about, okay, what ways can AI help my business? You should already be thinking about that and experimenting with some of the AI tools that are out there, so that you have an idea of what's possible now and an idea of what will be possible in the future. You should be thinking about, okay, well, how am I going to get the skills that I need in order to utilize AI within my applications? A lot of shops are turning to trusted partners like Profound Logic to help guide them and help them build roadmaps, looking for tools. Again, that's an area that Profound Logic is well known for, is so we have tools that are helping customers to be able to build AI into their applications. And the important thing is that you should be building a strategy. You're not going to AI enable your entire enterprise tomorrow. We can help you do it as quickly as possible, but it's not an overnight thing to do. But you should be building your plan now, because at the pace that things are growing, AI is going to be a mainstream feature that is expected by your customers and your users faster than you really think. So let's talk a little bit about what Profound Logic's been doing internally for AI. We are a very progressive company when it comes to technology. So we are actually pulling AI and using it in our everyday business all the time, and we're finding new uses for AI. And that is what we've been doing that for years now, which is why we're positioned like we are to help our customers to be able to use AI in their businesses as well. So what have we been doing? It's well known that we have code transformation services. We can transform RPG applications into Node.js, and we are using AI within that service to help us to be able to transform things better and faster. We found that it can be really useful for cleaning up code. We've also found that AI is really good at improving and adding clarity to SQL statements. AI understands SQL and can take things that are a little too complex sometimes and simplify it. And so we are using AI in those types of scenarios to help us to deliver a better product for our customers. We're using AI to help us to get our heads around large amounts of data. both structured and unstructured. We'll see in the demo that I'm going to give, the AI access to our database to be able to pull in some data. I'm also going to show you how we can upload a PDF, and data from that PDF can actually be pulled in and used by the AI as well. AI features in applications, that's something that we're obviously working on. We have a new AI tool that is, as I mentioned, is in beta. So that's something that we're doing actively within our products, is looking for how can we build AI into our products to make them easier to use. And then AI co-pilots. Our development team all have access to AI co-pilots when they're doing their development. And they're active, as we're developing our products, they're actively using AI to help them to code faster and more efficiently. And so those things are part of our everyday life now. And it has made our company better and stronger. So with that, let's talk business use cases, right? Let's talk about some things that you can do with AI right now to help your business to do more. So a common use case that I talk to my customers about all the time are the ideas of automated assistants. And that's we're going to see that live in a demo in a minute. But customers are looking to have a virtual assistant built into their applications to help their users with their everyday work. I have customers that are wanting to implement a virtual help desk for low level requests. So things like you can actually use AI to index all of your application documentation and your standard operating procedures. And then that virtual assistant can then offer assistance and advice to your users when they're not exactly sure how to do something. So it can use the application documentation to actually guide them on from a system standpoint, how do you do this? But it can use your documents, your operating procedures to also advise them on the business side of it. So maybe you need to go to this screen to enter a piece of information, but from a business standpoint, you also need to, for example, get a sign off from someone, or you need to notify someone in a warehouse of what you're about to do. And your AI assistant can actually help, especially your new employees, to know exactly what needs to be done. I have customers that are looking for automated assistance with password resets. For some businesses whose password requirements are very stringent and they're required to change them constantly, their help desk is getting overloaded with password reset requests when people forget their passwords, especially when they're on rolling expiration, where a lot of people, their password expires at the same time. So they're looking to build, an AI assistant to assist those customers, those users, with resetting their password. And automated hardware troubleshooting. AI is very good at a lot of things, especially when you're talking about commercial AI offerings. They've been trained over the entirety of the internet up to certain points in time. So, if a user is having trouble with their monitor, an AI can actually give suggestions on things they can try to get their monitor working before actually getting one of your human help desk agents involved. HR, we're going to see this in the demo as well. Indexing lots of unstructured data that's held in documents. So like your employee handbook, your benefits documents, your HR policies and procedures, all of that can be loaded into an AI agent, and that AI agent can then assist your employees by providing answers to questions about medical insurance or about time off policies, whatever it may be. And then the obvious one that a lot of companies are thinking about are things like website chatbots that can offer product information or do sales qualification in an automated fashion before getting a customer service representative involved with that customer. And then the big one for what we've been doing is enhancing legacy screens. So adding AI on top of your existing business application. So we're going to see that live in the demo. So we can increase the functionality and the business value provided by your IBM business applications without having to make major changes to those applications, with using little to no code at all to implement the AI itself. We do data analytics where end users can ask questions and describe, what type of output they're looking for. And these AI assistants can be applied anywhere. So with that, I'm trying to watch my time. We're at about 15 minutes, so I've got about 15 minutes left to do a live demo, which is perfect. Let's actually jump in and take a look at the Profound AI products and how it can actually implement AI in your existing business applications. So I'm gonna flip my screen over. And here we have our development environment for Profound AI. So if I wanted to start and build my first AI agent, all I need to do is come in and say, all right, I want a new AI agent. And it would drop me into this environment. Now I can build this without writing a single line of code. In fact, I don't even have to be a developer to be able to do this. So my first step is, okay, I need to select an AI model. Without going into a ton of detail about what models are and how they work, your model is your AI engine. Now we support all major models, both open source and commercial, and we support models that are running in the cloud as well as internally on premises. You can basically attach Profound AI to any type of model that you like. So I'll just choose one from here. You can see I have a list of all the ones we're working with right now. And we'll just choose GPT-4 Turbo Streaming. That's my favorite. Perfect. I can say, okay, I need a heading for my chatbot, and we'll just say Fortran demo. And we'll leave the greeting alone. I can do a light or a dark theme, and I like blue, so let's give it a color scheme of blue. Very simple things. So here, you'll see under the guidance tab, this is where I actually tell the AI what it is. So you're assisting an enterprise application user use the functions provided to respond appropriately. Very generic, that's the default. But even here in our development environment, we're already attached to the AI. So I can actually come in and say, good morning. And as you can see, the AI is already interacting with me. So as I'm building this AI agent, I can be interacting with it as well. So I can ask questions, and if the answers aren't exactly what I want, I can change my prompt here in the guidance to tweak exactly what this agent can do. You can see here I have the ability to add knowledge documents. We'll see that in a sec. Data access, I can give this AI access to tables. And I can control what tables it can see and what columns within those tables that it's allowed to access. I can build my own custom routines here, so more complex things that I'd like for it to be able to do. I can use our low-code system to build those out. This is also where I would allow the AI to be able to call an RPG program, for example. Again, we'll see that in a sec. But just answering a few questions and describing what this agent should do is all I need in order to build an AI agent. So let's take a look at what I've already built just for the sake of time. So I have this HR agent. So you can see I'm using GPT-4 Turbo, my HR assistant. It doesn't have access to any data or routines. For this, we're only dealing in knowledge documents. So you can see here my prompt says you're assisting users with human resource questions. Use functions and knowledge documents provided to respond appropriately. You will not answer any questions that do not pertain to the employee handbook. I'm going to upload the employee handbook in a second. You will apologize for not being allowed to answer general questions and ask if the user needs any further help. So in our environment, if you give an end user just access to ChatGPT, they can do anything in the world they want, right? Because they're in complete control. It's running in another browser window, and they can ask it to do anything. In this environment, we're still interacting with GPT-4 Turbo, which is, ChatGPT behind the covers. But in this case, IT controls the actual prompt. So we control what this agent can and can't do. So if I were to ask it, for example, who's the president of the US, it's actually going to tell me that it can't answer that question. I apologize, I'm not able to provide an answer to that question. My role is to assist with questions related to the employee handbook. So let's get the employee handbook involved. I'm going to go here and upload, and I have my employee handbook PDF here, and I'm going to upload that, and then I'm going to sync it. And what the sync does is it actually analyzes the document so that the AI can be context aware. So now I have this employee handbook that the AI can now pull information from, so I can ask it questions. So I can ask a simple question: are we off for Christmas? And it can answer those questions based on what's in the employee handbook. And you notice I gave it just kind of a generic question. I didn't spell it out specifically, that I'm asking about holidays or anything like that. It's intuitive enough to figure that out for me. So yes, you're off for Christmas. Full-time employees will be paid for holidays, including Christmas Day. If a scheduled paid holiday falls on Saturday, the holiday is observed on the preceding Friday. So those are our rules for holidays. I can even get, a more complex question, and I can say, as an employee of 13 years, how much vacation time do I get? And this is where the AI is actually going to do some thinking. So we have rules in our employee handbook about vacation time. And you get so much on the first year, so much on the 5th year. And then after that, you get additional hours for each amount of years that you have beyond the 5th year. And so it's taking it a second to think about it, because this is a much more complex question. But it can actually take those rules in and the information that I've provided, and it can come back with an answer about how much vacation time I would get if I were an employee of 13 years. And this is a development machine, so sometimes it does run just a little slower than I'd like. So I'll just take a second while that's still thinking and check to see if there are any questions in the chat, but I don't see any just yet. Interesting. It's taking much longer than expected. I'm wondering if one of my developers is doing something in the background that's slowing things down. In the meantime, let's talk about a different use case. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but I'm just going to kill that so that it will, so that it won't sit there and spin all day. Let's take a look at a more of a business use case. So let's imagine that I am a customer service representative, and so I'm talking to customers and I'm entering orders for them. So what if I wanted an AI agent that could assist me in helping my customers? So here we've built an agent. You can see here, if we look at our guidance that we provided, you're assisting an enterprise application user, providing insights and information on the customer and order ID being inquired upon. The customer ID is, and I have a variable, order ID is, and I have a variable. The agent has, this is going to be applied to an application screen, and the AI has the ability to pull in data from the screen, which gives it context. So you may be asked to give insights on this customer and all its orders, or even all customers. So I've allowed the AI agent to reach out a little beyond the context that I've given it. Always include the customer's company name, always refer to products by their product name. Sometimes the AI will use, product numbers, for example, instead of actual names of the products, and I like having the names when I'm doing a demo. Follow the context of the questions. Don't assume that every question is for the current order. In this data set that we have here, it's an older database with some old data in it. Order value isn't really a field on the order header. So we just describe in natural language to the AI, all right, well, this is how you calculate your order value. You sum up the order lines, their extended value, which is unit price times quantity times 1 minus the discount. And then the order freight can be added to give an order grand total, right? And then summarize your math concisely before giving the final answer. So we've actually taught the AI at this point how to calculate the order value based on our unique business rule. So within this, we have a few things going on. So data access, you can see here, I've given this particular AI agent access to my order detail, my products table, my categories table, and my shippers table. Now you'll also notice I have not told the AI how these tables relate. The AI can actually figure that out on its own. The AI is smart enough to figure out that it needs to use the order ID to connect the order and the order details table. It's smart enough to know when I'm in order details, I need to use the product ID to access the product table. I don't have to describe all of those relationships. It'll figure it out. Now, if it can't figure it out, if my database is just so wacky that it can't figure it out, I can actually put instructions in the guidance to tell it how to link tables together for the ones that are very tricky. So that gives my AI agent read-only access to the data that it needs to help me. Under my routines, I've got a few routines here running some custom SQL and some calculations. I have this get customer phone and fax. You'll notice I didn't give it access to my customer table, but in my guidance, I told it to always refer to the customer by name. Well, I actually have a routine here called get customer phone and fax. And it calls an IBM program called get cust inf. And here's, my parameter list telling it, what the parameters are for this RPG program. And for this routine, the input parameter is the customer ID, which is on the orders. And then the output parameters are the company name, company phone number, company fax number. Now, when we provide this information about this function to the AI, we provide everything. So all the descriptions on the parameters themselves, the description of the routine here under general info, all of that becomes part of the prompt so that the AI can understand what it is it's dealing with using natural language. The same is true on our data access. These tables don't have them, but if there are descriptions that are attached to the columns in the database, that information is fed to the AI as well. So if you have really cryptic column names, for example, which is common in DB2, but you do have labels, descriptions on those columns, the AI can use the labels to figure out what it is as well. So that's how we built this agent. This agent can be built in 15, 20 minutes, but I want to show you just how powerful it is. So when I'm ready to launch this, I can go here to deploy, and it will give me the code that I need to add to my user interface in order to run this. So right now, this is assuming that we're using a web-based user interface, and it gives me a snippet of JavaScript to copy into my onload. There are features coming to help with non-web interfaces, but again, we're in beta, so everything hasn't been implemented yet. But let's run our application. So as you can see here, I have just an application, a CRUD application here for orders. Let's just go into a customer and into their orders, and you'll see that I've actually implemented this this agent on one of those orders. So let's choose let's use this first one. It really doesn't matter, and let's just go into any order. So here we are. We're inside of this order. We can assume this is an order entry screen that where I'm entering an order for a customer. Down here at the bottom, you see I have this icon for the chat, and if I mouse over it, it says Ask AI Agent. I click that, and my agent that I built in the Profound AI product is here. And so this AI agent knows what customer I'm dealing with and what order I have on the screen. It has access to all the data that I've provided. It has access to all the custom routines that I have provided. It also has access if I had uploaded knowledge documents. So if I had information in unstructured data that I provided, it would have access to that. It also has access to, in this case, all of the data I'm using is in DB2, but it also has access to any database that we support. So that would include DB2, that would include MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, AWS Aurora, any database that we need to reach out to. So we can pull data from everywhere for this agent to be able to answer questions. So I'm just gonna come here and I'm just gonna ask it a question, but I'm not gonna ask it a question directly about the data because that would be too easy. I wanna really show you the power of what an AI agent can do for your application. So instead, I'm gonna say, all right, so I'm trying to sell to this customer. So based on order history, what promotions would increase sales to this customer? All right, so it's talking to the GPT that's running out in the cloud for OpenAI. It's coming back, and then Profound AI is doing all the data access that it asked for and providing that data back up to the AI. And then the AI is going to analyze that data. But what's really cool is that it's not just going to come back with, oh, here's some data. It's actually going to come back in a moment. I guess my connection's running really slow today. And it should give me not only data, but insights. So based on the history of this customer, certain products stand out in terms of quantity ordered and frequency. Here are a few insights. We can implement bulk purchase discounts. So products like, and it's going to scroll off screen for me because it's going to give a ton of information. So customers order products like whatever that is in French, and that in French, in large quantities. Offering a bulk purchase discount for these products may encourage the customer to place more orders. For products that have been ordered multiple times, you can do volume-based pricing in order to get them to order more at once. You might want to enter a loyalty rewards program, or maybe you want to do seasonal promotions. Cross-selling opportunities. By analyzing the combinations of products the customer has ordered, you could present offers that, for example, if they frequently buy certain types of cheeses, suggesting complementary products like crackers or wines could be effective. Now that's not just hey, this is data from a report. There's actual insight inside of what this AI is giving me to help me to sell more products to this customer while I'm on the phone with them. We can ask any types of questions and get this type of information. So based on orders, how can I sell more dairy products to this customer? So I can ask that, a slightly different question, and I'm going to get a different answer. So I'm hoping you're seeing here the power that you get here, which is that there's always a place for BI, right? You're always going to need to be able to see your data. But in this case, when we're, on the spot talking to a customer, we need more than just the data. We need the insights that come along with it. So here, how can we sell more dairy products? And it's giving me some ideas on how I can do that. Not just general ideas, but ideas based on the data that we have on this customer. And actually, what's really great about this is, IBM iShops are, I think, uniquely primed to be able to utilize things like this using AI. Why? Because we are generally running applications that have run for a really long time, which means we have a lot of data history to lean on. And so we can give, tools like AI access to that large amount of data, and that the AI can then find trends that maybe we as humans can't. And it can use information that it has during all of its training based on all the information on the internet to actually help us not only to see data, but to actually be able to make recommendations on things we can do to make our business better. So I'm going to pause again to check to see if there are any questions. If there are, please drop them in the chat, because I love talking about this.
Yeah, Brian, I think there's one question out there for you.
Yeah. I can't see it if there is. The chat.
Yeah, I think you might have answered this one, but it's basically asking, how do you provide AI with all the information to answer the questions?
Sure. So again, we do that when we're building the agent. We give it access to the data. We can build custom routines to call programs or to do complex tasks. And we can provide, knowledge documents. So this is, document-based data that we can upload to the AI. And what's really interesting, I think, about the way we're approaching this with Profound AI is that we're not actually giving the AI direct access to the data. What we do is we actually, when we talk to the AI, we say, okay, given these tables with these columns, tell me what you want. And so then the AI comes back and talks to the Profound AI framework and says, okay, will you run these SQL statements for me? And then Profound AI actually analyzes those SQL statements to make sure that it's not accessing anything that's not expressly listed here inside of what it's allowed to see. A lot of customers have a lot of distrust when it comes to giving AI access to the data. So the way we've designed our solution is we're actually kind of in between. The AI says, okay, based on those tables and columns, this is the information I need in the recommended SQL statement. We double check it to make sure that it's not trying to overstep its bounds. And since it's not, then we'll go ahead and run that data, run that SQL statement, and then send the result back to the AI. And the AI will then analyze that data and give us our reply. So all of that is being handled within the Profound AI framework. Again, just kind of being the protection from someone trying to do AI injection and overstep the bounds of what we actually want it to be able to do.
And there's another question here, Brian, too.
Yeah.
Is it possible to provide knowledge documents dynamically?
Not at this time. Again, we're still in beta, so that hasn't really been implemented yet. I can absolutely see that as a feature that will eventually make it in there, where you could, for example, just tell, instead of uploading an individual document, be able to, say, all the documents in this folder in the IFS, for example. That could certainly be a possibility in the future. But for right now, you do need to actually send the documents and then run this sync. So what the sync button does is it actually builds a vector database over those documents so that the AI can be context sensitive. And so it doesn't actually search, when I ask questions, it doesn't search for specific words within the document. It uses vectors. So that's how it can make sense of things if you don't word it exactly right. It's not looking for the exact term you sent. It's looking for a term that has the same vector as what your question has. So without getting too deep into it, it just makes it more intelligent as far as finding information. So that part right there is very specific right now, and it depends on some features that aren't available in all, even within all models yet. So as that feature becomes more prevalent in some of the open source models or some of the smaller models, then we can look into ways to make that more dynamic. But for right now, we have to be a little more specific.
Yeah, and that could be something that, just sort of brainstorming here from that standpoint. But on my next topic on the document management side, that could be some kind of plug-in to to a document management system on the back end to be able to grab some of that content and and secure it.
Possibly. Any other questions?
That is the only questions right now. If there's any other questions, again, feel free to put them into the window here, to the questions window. Looks
So
like that is it.
I will point out that I'm not an artist. All of the graphics that have been used in this presentation were generated by AI. Like I said, we use AI within our organization all the time now. So with that, I will leave you with this if there aren't any more questions. There's my email address. If you'd like to talk more about AI, feel free to reach out to me about it. If you're interested in maybe participating in our Profound AI beta program, I'd ask that you go to that link, profoundlogic.com/AI. And there's actually a form you can fill out there to show that you're interested in participating. We are, still actively soliciting companies that want to partner with us for AI solutions and participate in the beta program for that product. Beyond that, thank you, Fortra, for having me, and thank you all of you for giving me your attention for the last 40 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, that was a great presentation. Perfect. I don't think if there is any questions that do come in, I will get them over to you as well. If anybody has questions towards the end of the webinar here. Perfect. All right, let me see if I can switch back and do this the right way. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break or less here, maybe a little bit less. We can do a 5-minute break. And then we'll come back for the next session here. And the final session that I'll be doing is streamlining document management, security, and process management within your organization. So we'll talk about, some of the strategy around that. We'll talk about some of the features and functions that are needed inside of there, and we'll sort of deep dive in some of the AP automation processes and stuff like that we work with here at Fortra. We'll come back here in 5 minutes. So we'll come back here at 11:29. And again, thank you, Brian, for the presentation here today. That was really good. they're just waiting for waiting to get back here. But all right, let's get going on the last session here for today. And again, I just want to say thank you to Brian for doing that presentation. That was a amazing presentation from that standpoint, and then the technology is just crazy on what it can do, and the skill level that you don't have to have, right? And how the AI technology is just taken off is just amazing over the last couple of years. All right, now on to session 3 and the final session of the week, streamline document management, security, and process management. So this is sort of my first love from that standpoint. This is what I do, on a daily basis, very heavily here at Fortra, is work with organizations around, streamlining, document processes, right? So, document management and workflow management and stuff like that, and even forms management to be able to do that. But in today's digital world, automating tasks such as just capturing and securing information and managing documents become a higher priority within organizations than it has in the past, right? Because of all the security and regulations and stuff that need to happen on documents, right? And even processes. In this session, you'll learn how you can leverage a document management system to create a single secure point of document, forms, and report access, to enforce compliance and regulatory efforts, and optimize document capture processes as well. And we're going to use the AP process as an example here today, and how using technology to be able to optimize that process and be able to enforce. So, I hope you walk away with some knowledge on how you can, make, the flow of information through your organization, more effective, secure, and efficient, as possible as well. So that's a goal today from that standpoint of mine, to be able to give you enough information to be able to do that. And something to keep in mind when automating a process, or even when bringing in automation into an organization, you can take it in stages, right? You don't have to do, you don't have to do it all at once. You can implement pieces into the strategy and phase things in for automation, right? Because you want to make sure there's two big things here. You want to make sure is user adoption of the solution and standardization processes are happening. And again, that you want to build a solid foundation to build on. So that's key to this process, is everything that we do, we want to build that solid foundation, because as we talk about later, the land and expand kind of efforts are going to go forward, is as you go in for maybe an AP automation or an HR automation, process, or order automation process, how do we build upon that for other departments to be able to access those documents and, create a strategy around how they're going to use the system? Because it's always one of those things when we implement a system is everybody goes, oh, I want that now. That's really cool. That helps us, or that'll help us with compliance or regulatory. So some of that stuff gets worked out during the process. So you'll see, we'll talk about some of that here today as we go through. And later on, I'll be guiding to you some takeaways, of the session too, like our document and forms management guide, right? And then we also have our web docs for AP guide that just came out at the end of last year. That's very informational from that standpoint and helpful with some resources inside of there. And then the document management calculator. And these are all resources to help guide and create, some of the justification and use cases, for a document management and workflow, process within an organization. Here's just a quick look at today's agenda and topics. I'm going to cover the importance of a centralized document management and why it's important to you and your business. And then the importance of a process and document, workflows. So I have a couple slides I want to talk about those two things there. And I'm going to talk again about some trends that we're seeing, in the industry, and how we're sort of following them, right, from that standpoint. And then I want to, highlight some of the use cases that a document workflow management solution can be used for within an organization. And then again, I want to touch on components of a document and management workflow strategy, right? And how you can start to update one or create one, and some of those key pieces inside of there for user and organization adoption. That's a big thing that we're going to talk about today, is making sure that solutions are usable to users, right? And making it very easy, like Brian showed in his, making sure that like the AI interface was very easy to use, right? You got to make capture processes easy. You got to make accessing documents as simple as clicking a button inside of an ERP. or Google-like search, right? Like what people are used to. So you got to be able to feed that information there. And then at the end, if time permits, I'm going to just talk a little bit about the web docs document management solution and how it can help you in that strategy as well with inside of your organization. And again, if you have any questions as we're going through as I'm going through the presentation today, feel free to put those into the chat window and I will address them towards the end of the session or as I'm going. All right, let's start with the topic of the importance of document and workflow management in an organization, right? Document management streamlines organizations, enhances collaboration, and ensures version and audit control. It improves the security and facilitates the effective or efficient retrieval of information, right? And it ultimately boosts productivity, with security and compliance and regulatory requirements. So the systems, any document management systems will not make you compliant, but it will help you aid in your compliance efforts, right? Like being able to enforce business processes, being able to enforce security and access levels. But since the dawn of commerce, right, the ability to maintain an efficient operation, offers, a competitive edge to businesses today, right? And in today's day and age, it's no different. From artificial intelligence to machine learning, robotic process automation, new ways of optimizing business operations continue to make waves within organizations across the world. However, one type of solution, tends to get overlooked, nowadays among the ranks of all the cool technology out there, right? And that's the document management solution. It can impact productivity and efficiency at nearly every level of a modern business. But if it's implemented incorrectly, in which we see that a lot today, a lot of organizations have been using systems for years, but if it's implemented incorrectly, it's not efficient to the business, right? From that standpoint, it doesn't get used. So a lot of times it gets a bad rap at that point because of that solution, because of another solution that was in place and it wasn't implemented correctly. Even though that solution might have been a wonderful solution, it might not be modern enough or have certain functionality, but it might not have been implemented correctly in the beginning to be able to be adopted during that process. Here's an interesting fact too. So 64% of small to medium businesses confirm they waste time every day on paper intensive processes. And I mean, this is what I do every single day of my life. Basically, I work inside of people's processes, and this is also what I hear is right. They're wasting time on those paper intensive processes, either from the approval standpoint or from chasing things down, or having to, and especially nowadays with remote workers, being able to get information to people easily and quickly. Now, the importance of a process enforcement, inside of an organization sort of piggybacks off of that, right? Manual processes are inefficient, and inefficiency is costly to business for many reasons, right? Many industries have paper-laden manual processes, and manual processes that require more time, making a business less efficient than it could be. To improve processes, you may need to change the way you handle key documents, within your departmental processes like AP, AR, HR, shipping, legal, or other departments inside of your organization. Manual paper-based business processes will slow down any business. However, automating an inefficient business process will only make you more inefficient. So we want to make sure you bring efficiency to the process first, and then we can improve it by adding automation to it. So we look at the business process standpoint as well, and then we can take out the inefficiencies and then help with automation to increase the efficiency levels. Here's another interesting statistic. The past 18 months, 65% of organizations are looking to bring some level of workflow automation to their departments and processes. So they can enforce processes and remove manual intervention to bring back efficiencies to the business. So this is a very key piece of here, and we see this a lot with inside of the AP automation processes and stuff that we do. here on the web docs document management side, we see a ton of people with those inefficiencies from that standpoint and being able to handle that process. Now let's move on to some of the trends here that we're seeing, because I think there's some interesting information into some of these trends, and these are in no certain order. So you can see that centralized secure repository for documents, the workflow and departmental process automation, and one of the rising things is intelligent classification and OCR technology. We use this in our AP automation side of things, right? So using our web docs system to be able to do some automatic capture and classification of information in there. And this is key to departmental process automation, like I was talking about for AP invoicing. It could be for AR order capture, and in some cases, in some organizations, claims processing. And the last one that's on this list that I like to highlight is disaster recovery and high availability. And the reason it's been on this list for so long is pretty obvious, right? With all the weather and the events happening in the world, past and present, right? Organizations need to make sure that they can run their business no matter what they're facing, right? So if there's a flood and it takes out paper and stuff like that, or just pure space and cost, right? They want to be able to work and have users access information no matter where they're at. Here's something, again, from the IBM survey last month. I thought this was interesting. There's a couple areas that I'm going to highlight here, and the numbers ain't surprising, right? In some cases, if you if you look at them, you might say, why is document management only 13%? I thought that was so important to organizations. But you also have to take in consideration how people are looking at the different scenarios, right? Because a document management system sometimes is not considered, for automation, right? So sometimes it gets categorized a little bit differently from that standpoint. So you need to take in consideration some of the other categories like IT and business automation, right? Because it could fall underneath there, and then compliance and regulatory. So that could be a big part there, from that standpoint. And even like I said, even disaster recovery and high availability, all parts of which a document management solution can help with. And so technically, all these categories are connected in some instance. Now, here's a survey that I screenshotted from yesterday's day 2 security session. I thought this was, or a polling question that came out, and I thought this was interesting because it follows along with the trends that we're seeing as well. And shows that 62% of organizations are looking at securing access to sensitive data. And there's another 38% that are looking at compliance and mandates. So being able to, so we're seeing those trends and stuff like that, and a document management system can help with not so much the data portion, but the document portion of the process there too. So we're seeing that trend on both sides of the business, which is sort of interesting. So that's good that people are wanting to secure and bringing that to the organization. Now, document management systems have become more of a necessity instead of the nice to have, right? To be able to help with document automation, to provide efficiencies within departmental processes and integration to ERP and line of business systems. They are essential for business because it streamlines the organization. Another one is it improves collaboration or brings collaboration to the business, right? Instead of handing documents around. And it can ensure the regulatory and compliance and enhances, and enforces the security processes and facilitates an easier retrieval of information process. Effective document management systems contribute to overall productivity, and they reduce the risk of errors and data loss within an organization. Document workflow management systems are and uses have been on the rise for years because of areas of business concern like security of documents and forms. Being able to have policies in place to be able to secure that information down. Workflow and process enforcement. Being able to, if a document comes in, an order comes in, an invoice needs approval or whatever it is, right? Being able to enforce that, right? And show auditors that you can enforce that. And then document retention rules and compliance and regulatory. This is always an interesting one, and this has came up in the last couple of weeks, even more with quite a few customers that have been using, our systems a long time. And one of the things to think about is compliancy doesn't always mean keeping documents forever in some cases, right? but also having retention policies so they are deleted and or moved when they don't need them anymore. So keeping too much information sometimes can make you non-compliant and put your organization at risk. Not only to mention the disk space that you're using, right, and the network space that you're using, for those non-used documents after a while adds up. But yeah, that's a big thing, that non-compliance. So you really have to look at your industry from that standpoint and say, how long do I really need to keep this? Do I need to keep this 20 years? Kind of a thing. Some documents you need to keep forever. Yes, for sure. But some information you only might need to keep for, a year, 7 years, 3 years, and stuff like that. So looking at the compliancy around that, and that's something, if you want to reach out to us, I do have some documentation on that as well, on some of those, different, how long should I keep something, right? And here are some questions you need to ask yourself in your organization to see if you're getting the highest business efficiency within your document processes, right? Is employee productivity affected by time spent searching for lost documents? Are they searching for that information? Can they find it? Kind of a thing, right? There's a lot of organizations that use network folders, they use SharePoint, they use other systems and stuff like that, but they can't find the information fast because once information gets to a certain point, it can be overwhelming sometimes, right? So you need a system to be able to filter through that information. Is your organization exposed to audit and security risk because documents are not locked down and secured, right? Are auditors coming in and saying, hey, who has access to these? The filing cabinets are a big thing, right? Because it's like, you don't know who's looking at some of that information in some of those cases in filing cabinets. They might be locked or, kind of a thing, but that's the only security to them. So being auditors being able to look at history and version controls and audit controls and who did what with it and who approved things is huge to be able to provide that to an auditor. Do you struggle with hampered approval processes, right? Is there processes in place or can you put processes in place to streamline those? And the last ones are documents in your organization stored in 2 or more locations. I think this is a big one that goes into our next topic, right? I mean, it's very common, what I call document chaos, right? And all organizations, if you like it or not, face some kind of document chaos within their organizations. This is just a natural part of doing business, but organizations need to find ways to create more of a controlled chaos scenario, right? And here's a scenario that we run into a lot from that standpoint. And and from this scenario, it's called multiple versions, right? So original is created, it gets passed around through an email process or through a file share on the network, and then the last person in the process doesn't know what version they need to be working on, right? Is it Sally's? Is it Bob's? Is it Rick's? Is it Tim's? Kind of a thing. Whose is it that we need to work on, and what's the original copy? So being able to enforce the document chaos is I think is huge, right? And being able to manage the whole process. And this comes back to I'll call it the most simplest thing in a document management system, is being able to manage the version and audit controls of documents, right? And security around them. Does each person have change control on a document, or do they just have view control? And they're just approving it and putting their notes in and someone else change it. So being able to set those securities up, I think is a key part of it. But that's one form of document chaos. The other one is the silos of content on your network, right? This just keeps growing and growing and growing. You can add cloud storage to this list as well, from that standpoint. So, but silos of content on people's networks, and implementing a strategy around this does take a little bit more time to be able to contain it. But you got to start somewhere, right? If it's email and faxes, if it's spool file management that you're looking at, or ERP attachments, and that's one of the scenarios that a lot of organizations come to us. And then in the last 6 months, we've had a couple of organizations come to us and say, geez, we want to manage our documents in the document management system and then stuff in our ERP, from attachment standpoint. Well, why do you want to do that, right? And talking to them, it didn't make sense after they talked to us that to manage those other documents in the ERP system as attachments, put them into the document management system and keep it in the full strategy of theirs, right? And have them in one spot and not two. It simplified user interactivity on the front end, but also streamlined the back end operations and security side. We see a lot of content, on people's desktops, being able to store that information in there in network folders. Paper filing cabinets we still see quite a bit of, but it's going down and down, and especially with the more modern companies in the digital world kind of a feel. But all this content needs to be managed better within organizations. So, and sometimes I call this content in the wild, right? Because in most cases there might be policies in organizations, but there's no real way to put enforcement so users do what you want them to do with that information. So sometimes you have to limit that information, right? Or limit the different repositories for them to put it at. Now I'm going to spend just a few minutes on some of the use cases for a document management solution within an organization. And the number one is not surprisingly, right? Like we talked about, it's the general document management and workflow, right? So being able to store all your documents in one location and being able to access them via the interfaces and via the workflows. The main theme again is manage a single source of truth. Having a central repository for these documents is essential to the process, right? It eliminates these silos, so it's easier for you to manage the content and storage on your network. And a lot of the departmental things that we do, so when we're managing documents, we like to look at like departmental automation processes like accounts payable, which I'll be talking about here in just in the next slide here. But look at those different processes and stuff like that and say, how can we help people and manage those documents manage the documents, but also manage the process, right? So things like, accounts payable, human resources, shipping, legal, contract management's been big lately. And then something we've been doing for 20 years now, report and spool file management. So being able to, take that content and bring it into the system. That's one of the keys to the capture strategy that we'll talk about later here. Now here's an example of an AP departmental process. So we deal with this a lot, and we use technology to optimize the business process and enhance the way users interact with the process, right? Eliminating manual steps and hand keying or hand delivering approvals and giving, focusing the user back in what they're really supposed to be doing within that department, right? So that's key inside of there. And here's an example of something that I like to call, so there's a main process and sub processes, right? And when you look at something like this, we look at consistency inside of here. So when you're mapping out your data strategies and stuff like that and process strategies, we like to look at the full process, right? But there might be a full process or a main process and say, okay, here's the main process broken into these three pieces. This is standard and the back end standard. But what's not standard, everybody thinks, and I always laugh at when people say this, oh, it's just an AP process. It's the same as everybody else's. And I'm like, the only thing the same is how things are coming in and how things are going out. What's different is that middle piece. And I will tell you, it is a lot different in some organizations. We bring standardization to some of the AP process here with some of the functionality that we have in our solution. But looking at just the process side of things, we look at how users are interacting inside of here now. So documents are automated coming in, but how can we put business rules and the solution in place to be able to streamline this part using workflow enforcement? So that's key to some of that process. And if you look at the sub process and break it down by steps, right? These individual steps it takes to get things and how users are interacting at each of these steps and what they're doing. Sometimes it's unbelievable how much work they are doing, right? And with a little bit of automation, we can really help them with that process. If users need to be get brought back into an automation process, there should be a notification or direction given to them on what they need to do to move the process forward. Automation needs to be intelligent enough to take care of normal business issues and respond appropriately. An example of that would be like in the AP process, right? If to and through matching in a variance process. And if it fails, if we go and check the ERP system or check our system, and if it fails, it will it will put an exception out there and it will notify and put it through a workflow process for a user to correct. Now, organizations buy DMS solutions to solve current problems at hand, but even need to get more efficiency and more value out of a solution. It's create a plan across the entire organization, right? Point solutions are nice, and sometimes the volume of a point solution, like especially with AP, if you're processing 50,000 invoices a year, you got one person doing that, and you don't have to hire. There's a value to that, right? But the land and expand opportunities within organizations are huge, right? There's a lot of companies when we're talking to them, and we bring up information and they go, oh, hey, we can use that in accounts receivable for our AR invoices, or for human resources departments looking at something, or contract management, or hey, can we put our spool file and reports out there? Can we convert our reports and put them into the system and have those accessible more on an on-demand basis? And it's like, yeah, definitely, from that standpoint. And sometimes, organizations need to look at, the functionality of the solution, but I always look at the integration capability as well. So two areas I really look at, right? Or three areas: the interface of the document management system, the APIs that I can use for integration, and then the capture. I think the capture is huge, from that standpoint. So so you got to be able to, have those different flexibilities and stuff inside the system to be able to capture that information in to the system. So just don't look at the short term or the tip of the iceberg in some cases, but you need to look at sort of the future and some of the stuff you're not seeing right away, right? But just make sure the solution is expandable at that point, right? And I think is key inside of there. Now, components of an organization's document management strategy, right? There's so many benefits, for creating a document management strategy in an organization. Again, it streamlines the processes, it brings back efficiencies. It defines strategy to ensure documents are organized and only accessible by who needs to access them, right? I think that's a huge part of it. So efficiency is a huge part of the strategy, but security is another part of it as well. And being able to bring that information in and having a robust strategy that also ensures compliance and regulatory for different different areas of the business. And we have and this just a quick story. We had a lot of organizations that use our solution, and when they use our solution, when they get audited, they're not even bringing their auditors in. They're just giving access to their auditors via the web interface. So they can limit the auditors to what they see and what they have access to. So it's nice to be able to, the auditors like that because they're in and out at that point, and the organizations like that because they can't dig into anything else at that point. And then here's some, one of the things here, I want to make sure I end up on time here, but components of a document management strategy, like capture, document capture, security, process enforcement, compliance and regulatory, audit and version control, integration strategy, storage strategy, and retention policies, and a phased implementation. Capture and strategy are the two I'm going to focus here on today for time purposes. But you need to make sure inside of a capture strategy that you look at a couple different things, right? You look at internal document capture and external document capture. How do I need to capture that information? Is it on an interactive basis? Is it a partially automated interactive basis? Is it a fully automated process, right? So am I using, Microsoft Word, to be able to drag and drop and click a button inside of there to be able to access things? Am I using a print driver to print from any application to be able to bring things in? I think that's key to a strategy, is to have the wide variety of information, right? And now staying on that AP topic, with automation technology, we use a combination of ways to be able to capture information, right? Like with our intelligent classification and OCR data extraction process for AP automation, we use a core technology, and there's what we call actions intelligence built into it. And this allows you to, for orders, invoices, and claims, to be able to read the content of a document and then classify it and then extract the data depending on that classification. And then we can, with definition creation and processes like that, we can fine tune it to be able to, if anything falls outside of a normal document structure, we can fine tune it, or it needs to be processed different. We can create definitions to be able to enforce it differently. And then we have user trained data extraction technology too, where you can point and click to be able to capture, some of those data values inside of the process that, that remember for the next, so I can remember that information for the next time. But here's the example of the Fortran Web Docs document management capture portfolio. This is what I want. This is what I want to focus on here, just for a minute here, because this is very important, right? Because you want to make sure a solution has a wide variety of solution or capabilities built into it, and also extends outside of it to be able to bring documents into the system. Because if you don't have capture capability, a document management system is worthless to an organization. Right, so you want to make sure you're efficient to be able to capture spool files in it and do conversion. You need to be users interact with it. If you want to use robotic process automation into it, if you want to use a managed file transfer system into it, if you want to create forms and save into it, you got to have those capabilities inside of there as well. And then data access strategies, right? Like how long, that we talked about this a little bit earlier, but what should I capture into the system and how long should I keep it? You want to make sure you're compliant, from that standpoint, and being compliant in there, but making sure that you're just not shoving stuff into a different location, right? You want to have some strategy around what you're capturing and how long you're keeping that content into the system as well. And I'm going to finish up on this right here. From that standpoint, what you can start to do right now, right? Organizations are, looking at improving processes and bringing automation to solve, efficiency problems, right? And, being able to, you need to be able to start the process inside and start asking questions, right? Even if you're using a document management solution, maybe you're putting teams together to be able to talk about, different ways, right? So start defining teams, right? Make sure you have the right internal champions and approvers that you need to move the project forward, right? And get the input from the department teams. Don't leave them out of it. So people that are doing the work, they need to be part of the process. Understand your documents a little bit better that are being captured, and discover and define business departments and workflows. The biggest help, inside of an implementation process is say, hey, I got a block chart that shows you the process here. Start defining some of that information. Define your document types. The security requirements around that. Do discovery where departments and users are storing documents, right? That's a big one. The first one is discover where every little silo is inside the organization. And then discover how people are, searching for this information in the organization today and how they can make it easier, right? Could we put a button inside of an application? Would ERP integration make sense at that point? To be able to click on a green screen and do something from a green screen to access it. Get buy-in from other parts of the organization, so you can expand later on throughout with an automation plan. And then integration plan. I think this is huge. Is understand what integration capabilities your solution has today, from the ERP or business system, right? And then what would make sense for integration inside of there for user activity. Research the volume of documents from storage, right? And understand where you're going to keep that document information at. Do you want to keep it on the IBM? Do you want in the IFS? Do you want to put it in cloud? Do you want to put the data storage on the Windows network or SAN or NAS servers, right? So you have a variety of options at that point. What kind of environments do you need to run inside your organization? Do you need a test, prod, dev, HA? What requirements are needed for that process? And then the last one is compliance and regulatory. Make sure you're looking at all those questions that you're asking during this process are around security, obviously, right? But you want to make sure that you're following the compliance and regulatory needs as well, and those are enforced inside the process. And our presentation is, I know I'm just a couple minutes over here, but from that standpoint, I'm going to leave you here at this point with the just to understand a little bit more about what we do here at Fortra. I mean, so we do have a document management solution, the Web Docs document management solution, and I see some people actually in the chat window actually use our system here. But it can be expanded outside of just normal document processing, right? So it can be used in any department, any process, and it can be used with multiple things, document creation processes. It can be used for spool file and report management. But again, capture is a huge part of the process, right? So we do have native I solutions, we have native Windows solutions, and both solutions actually work cross-platform kind of structures, right? So Windows can work with I can work with Windows, and vice versa. So we do have those different processes there. But from a standpoint of integration, you make sure I always like I said talked about earlier from the question standpoint, but we have different ways to integrate into systems to streamline user interactivity, because you want to make sure usability of the solution and adoption of the solution inside the organization is number one. All right. I don't think there's any questions at this point. Just looking here through the questions. I don't think there's any questions. There was one that I did answer already as I was going through. But yeah, just want to thank everyone for being able to give you some knowledge on the day 3 information here, and also all the information that you learned over the past 3 days. Your heads are probably all spinning out there. But yeah, I mean, if there's any questions that you come into, around the document and forms management process, workflow enforcement process, BI side of things, feel free to reach out to us. We're here for you from that standpoint to help you and educate you on different things inside of our solution and outside of our solution, even at that point too. But feel free to lean on us from that standpoint. I just want to thank everyone again for attending. And I believe you will get a recording link to each of the days. So if you have any questions, but in the meantime, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks everyone for attending.